Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win again edition. My name is Keith Parrish. Surprise, I'm doing another episode. Hadn't really planned to, but hey, I had a Sunday off, and the Grizzlies won their third straight for their first winning streak of the season. So I figured, why not? Let's relish in it. The Grizzlies came from behind and beat the Atlanta Hawks on the road on Saturday night. The Grizzlies scored a season-high 125 points. They improved to 3-0 with Ja Morant. Let's talk about the entire game. Before I do, just a reminder, if you want to help out the creation of this show, go to patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you join my Patreon, you get exclusive bonus content, including a bonus episode of Fast Break Breakfast every month. Plus, you can join the Slack channel. You can join the Grits and Grinds specific Slack channel and talk about the Memphis Grizzlies with me and other listeners whenever you want. Again, support the show, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, this one was more of an offensive shootout, maybe than the last game. The Grizzlies fell down by 10 points at halftime, but responded in the second half with a season-high 75 points, having one more point than they scored in the second half against the Pelicans. And you got, once again, huge performances from your big three. Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. have now scored 20 or more points apiece in all three games this season that they've played together, and that runs their tally, I believe, to 7-0 all time. They definitely never lost when all three of those guys score 20 or more. But the big hero, I think, sorry, Jaren, you're kind of third wheel on this one. It's Desmond Bane and Ja Morant. Bane led the team with 37 points, including 31 in the second half. This is the third game of Desmond Bane's career where he's had a 30-point half. He had 32 in that 49-point performance against the Pistons earlier this year. As the Grizzlies came from that halftime deficit and came back and basically seized control of this game, you had Bane and Morant basically being a handful that could not be stopped. By the way, the highest scoring half in franchise history, I assume all the faithful listeners know this one. But if you're not a faithful listener or you have a short-term memory deficit, of course the answer is Kenneth Lofton Jr., who had 35 points in the Kenneth Lofton Jr. game against the Thunder last year. By the way, Kenneth Lofton Jr., if you didn't see it, he has signed a two-way deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. So good luck to Jr. Joining our dearly departed DeAnthony Melton up in Philadelphia. But Bane had 37 points. Not just that, he continued his streak of making three or more three-pointers. It's now the longest streak in the longest current streak in the NBA right now at 12 games in a row with at least three made three-pointers, extending that Grizzlies franchise record. The longest streak in the NBA this year so far belongs to Kobe White, by the way. But Bane hit 5 more three-pointers for the month of December. This is the Grizzlies' last 10 games. Desmond Bane is averaging 28 points per game. He's averaging 3.9 made three-pointers per game. He's 8th in the NBA in points per game in the month of December. The 39 made threes, I was thinking, all right, that's kind of a lot. I don't think it's a Grizzlies franchise record, but I'm curious what the Grizzlies franchise record is for most made threes over any 10-game span. Turns out the franchise record is by Mike Miller in the 2006-2007 season. Mike Miller, like 16 years ago, made 51 three-pointers over a 10-game span. That is a preposterous number. He made 7 or more three-pointers in 3 straight games during that span. So that's an incredible performance by one of my favorite old Grizzlies players, Mike Miller. I can't even imagine what I would have been like if I had been podcasting back then. But Bane with a ways to go to catch up with that Mike Miller record. But again, Bane continues playing incredibly well and also continued for the second straight game doing most of his damage in the second half. If you remember, he scored 22 of his 31 points against the Pacers in the second half. So the last 2 second halves, Bane has scored 22 and 31. Now, Ja Morant had his first 30-point 10-assist game of his short season so far, finished with 30 points and 11 assists as he went head-to-head with Trae Young. I mean, he didn't really go head-to-head with Trae Young. Vince Williams Jr. guarded Trae Young all night. Trae did extend his historic streak of consecutive games with at least 30 points and 10 assists. He matched the longest streak in NBA history. He matched Oscar Robertson with 7 straight games of at least 30 points and 10 assists. I have Trae Young in a couple of different fantasy leagues, and it's been a delight, but also I've been watching these games, and he definitely guns for the record at the end of the games, and I don't know if it's to the detriment of the team. I mean, they're a little bit shorthanded, the Hawks are right now. They didn't have DeAndre Hunter, and this one, of course, Jalen Johnson's been out for a while, but during this 7-game streak where Trae Young matched Oscar Robertson, the Hawks have only won 3 of those games. But Ja Morant was scintillating, spectacular, amazing once again, and he has totally transformed this Grizzlies team. The Grizzlies team who in the first 25 games shot over 50% as a team just 2 times. They've now done it all 3 games that Ja Morant's been here. They shot 51% against the Hawks. They now have a 120 offensive rating in the 3 games that Ja Morant's been here. In the first 25 games of the season, they were right at 105 offensive rating. Their points in the paint all of a sudden have skyrocketed. They had 76 points in the paint. That's an outrageous number. They're taking shots, of course, right in front of the rim where they were not previously. That Steven Adams stats account on Twitter posted that the Grizzlies have attempted 36% of their field goal attempts at the rim in the last 3 games. That's up from 26% of their attempts through the first 25 games. That 26% number was 27th in the NBA. So the Grizzlies are scoring in the paint. They are getting these huge performances from their big 3. I mean, Jaren has slotted into this like third option, and he slotted there basically perfectly. For the second straight game, he went 8 out of 10 from the floor. Scored 20 points, had 2 rebounds, no assists, no steals, and no blocks. That is an Allen Houston stat line. By the way, Jaren has had consecutive games with 0 blocks, so he's still 1 block behind Stromile Swift for the 3rd most in franchise history. This was the first time Jaren has had consecutive games with 0 blocks since last December. It's been over 12 months since Jaren did that. But when you're getting these huge performances like you've gotten in all 3 games now, it's enough, as the Grizzlies have found their winning ways. Now, I do think we can maintain a sort of level head by poking some holes in this very short winning streak. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. To just be aware, like the last 2 Grizzlies games, they've had schedule advantages. Against the Pacers were on the road on the second night of a back-to-back. The Hawks on Saturday night were actually on the second night of a back-to-back, and they were traveling. So this was a rest advantage game for the Grizzlies. And a lot of times in those rest advantage games, you might see the team at the disadvantage fade in the second half, and that is exactly what we saw in this game. Now, a good omen, if I don't want to necessarily give you a downer for the 3-game winning streak, again, I'm not saying feel bad about it. I am ecstatic. I've never been happier. Watching the Grizzlies is amazing again. But a good sign, I think, from this 3-game winning streak, outside, of course, the offensive rating, is the fact that they have a great offensive rating and they're still not making 3-pointers. Yeah, Dez, made 5. That's on 14 attempts. The previous game, he had 5 on 12 attempts. Those numbers are fine. They're not bad, but the rest of the roster not making 3-pointers. So the Grizzlies are posting this incredible offensive rating, or it is a very, very good offensive rating, and they're still not making three-pointers. So I think that part of it is, in fact, a good sign. Another reason I think the Grizzlies are finding success outside of the play of your big three of Ja, Desmond, and Jaren is they keep leaning on Vince Williams Jr. as this connective piece, as this like fourth best player. They are playing heavy minutes to their main guys. All right, Jaren struggled with foul trouble once again. Did he foul out? No, he did not. Jaren only played 24 minutes, but they are playing their main guys heavy minutes. Ja played 36. Desmond Bane played 36. Vince Williams Jr. played 35. That's in line with the number of minutes that they've been playing those guys for the past 3 games since Ja returned. Vince Williams Jr. has played right at 35 minutes in each of the last 3 games. He is only the 5th player under Taylor Jenkins to play 34 or more minutes in 3 consecutive games. The only players to do so are Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Tyus Jones did it once, and now Vince Williams Jr. has done it once. Jaren Jackson Jr. has never played 34 or minutes in 3 straight games under Taylor Jenkins. Now Vince Williams Jr. has. And with these minutes, you've seen him make the most of his opportunities. I mean, he's not a scorer. We know that. The last 2 games, the three-pointers haven't really gone in, but it doesn't matter. He guards the other team's best player. He makes it his life's mission, basically, to get the ball to Ja, Desmond, and Jaren. He is exactly what I think Grizzlies fans wanted Dylan Brooks to be. Vince Williams Jr. guards the other team's best player, and then on offense, only shoots open threes and layups and makes it his sole purpose to get the ball to Ja, Desmond, and Jaren. He also does something that Dylan Brooks never could do, which is rebound. In this game against the Hawks, Vince Williams Jr. set a career high with 11 rebounds. For the month of December, the last 10 games, Vince Williams Jr. still leads the Grizzlies in rebounds per game at 6.5. Vince Williams Jr. is 6'4", and he is pound for pound the best rebounder on the team. I would say, removing the pound for pound caveat, he might be the best rebounder on the team, just period. I mean, Bismack, solid rebounder, but he's 6'11" or so. Bismack had 11 rebounds on this one, got back kind of in a slightly better performance. They chose to close with Bismack. They played Bismack 29 minutes, but compared with the activity of Vince Williams Jr., I mean, it's hard for anybody else to keep up, basically. The guy is this motor, and he's this connective piece that works so well. It's been such a delight to see him play. Also, he's getting some of the defensive stats that I feel like he was robbed of in previous games. He got 2 steals in this one. He got a career-high 3 steals against the Pacers, so he's actually getting some steal numbers to go with those deflections. And he's still making hustle plays where other players end up with the steal numbers where he's knocking it away. Like I think Biz got a steal on this one, where it actually was Vince Williams Jr. dislodging a rebound. And there were moments in the second half where there are offensive rebounds. There are second chance opportunities created where it was all Vince Williams Jr. Vince Williams Jr., he's guarding the other team's best player who's a point guard, but then on defense or on offense, he's the main offensive rebounder, keeping these possessions alive. It's incredible to see. I have been just delighted with what Vince Williams Jr. has provided in recent games. Now, Taylor Jenkins said before this game that Marcus Smart is expected back in the next game. We got a bit of a curveball thrown to us where Marcus popped up as doubtful on the last injury report, on the injury report before the Pacers game. And so we're like, oh, we know what this means. And that means he's going to be questionable next game he's going to play. But no, he was doubtful again. I don't know if Grizzlies PR just did this to throw off the scent of their normal pattern, but Marcus Smart did not make his season debut, or his debut after injury, his return after injury against the Hawks. He's apparently going to do that in the next game against the Pelicans. When Smart returns, does he take Vince Williams Jr.'s starting spot? I've said it for multiple shows in a row. I would still start Vince Williams Jr. DeMichael Cole asked Taylor Jenkins directly after the game Is Marcus Smart going to start and take Vince Williams Jr.'s role? He asked him directly. Kudos to DeMichael for asking the question. Taylor, of course, did not answer the question. He just complimented Vince Williams Jr.'s effort and impact on the game and said how well he's been playing, and they'll just, they'll figure it out or whatever. If they start Marcus Smart, it's fine. I mean, the lineups will work themselves out. I suggest, though, again, starting Vince still, bringing Smart in to basically soak up those John Conchar minutes and maybe take some of the Zaire minutes. And that way Marcus Smart can play with some of the bench players. I think it still makes sense where like your main heavy minutes guys are going to be your big three plus Vince still and Marcus Smart. I would say you could easily bring Smart off the bench and still have him play 28, 29 minutes or so. And the main guys who are losing minutes, like I think Conchar is going to be out of the rotation. Conchar left this game with a thumb injury. That makes it a little bit easier to make those lineup decisions. But even if Conchar had not been hurt, I'm pretty sure he would have been out of the rotation. They would have stuck with Zaire. Because again, Zaire had another pretty okay game. Some ups and downs, but the ups are so good as far as him being that lob finisher for Ja. And positionally, I think he makes more sense just with his size to leave him out there. So I assumed it was going to be Zaire staying in the rotation if they stay with a 9-man rotation, and then Marcus is going to take Conchar's minutes. Again, if Marcus starts, then I assume just Vince is going to soak up all those Conchar minutes, and then we'll, play it from there. Once Kennard comes back, and he's apparently not very far away, maybe a week or so away, then you have some real issues. I think at that point, you probably maybe start thinking about cutting one of your bigs out of the rotation. Like you play either Tillman or Bismack, and maybe you go to a 10-man rotation. But like, I think Vince is more important to the Grizzlies than Luke Kennard is, just because of the positional overlap between Kennard and Smart and Bane. I think Smart going to get minutes, and he's better than Luke Kennard. I think the fact that Vince is such a good connective piece, such a good rebounder, and such a good defender, you're going to want him to play instead of Luke Kennard at times. Like, Vince is going to take Luke Kennard's minutes. This is why I've basically convinced myself, I think we need to try to trade Kennard for a center. Like, what's the best center we could get for Luke Kennard, where we don't even have to attach any assets or anything to it? I think that's a question that most of us should be asking ourselves. The front office maybe should be asking themselves, but we don't have to worry about that just yet. By the way, Tillman had some okay moments again. He had 2 blocks and a steal. He converted some of his floaters in this game. If you combine the Tillman and Biyombo stats, we're really getting somewhere. That's 14 points, 14 rebounds between the two of them. So which one of those guys gets the most minutes? Which one of those guys closes games? I assume it's going to start trending back towards Tillman eventually, but it hasn't yet. And in this one, Bismack got the upper hand. With those season high 125 points, the Grizzlies tied their season high with 29 assists, set a season high with 50 made field goals. One of the good things about the assists, I mean, yeah, you had Ja with 11, but then the rest of them were pretty spread around. That's really good to see. Zaire had 3, Aldama had 3, Biyombo had 3. So the extra ball movement, the extra boost offensively that they're getting, that's reflected in those assist numbers. I mean, they still haven't had a 30 assist game. Those were prevalent over the previous couple seasons, so I assume eventually the Grizzlies will get back to that level. Aldama, he did score 6 points. He made a 3 to extend his career-long streak of 22 straight games with a made 3-pointer. He also threw a pretty sweet alley-oop to Ja Morant, where Ja Morant was the screener for Santi, and then Santi got to deliver the alley-oop to Ja. I mean, everything with Ja, it's kind of incredible how much one guy can just transform a team. Like, I know Ja Morant is one of the best players in the NBA. He's all NBA level guard, but from where this team was without him to him just coming back, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, everything makes sense now. Just this one player can really transform everything. It has been delightful to see. And I think with that, we can wrap up the episode. No reason to go extra long today. The Grizzlies now, after Christmas, go on this road trip that looks pretty daunting. You have to play at the Pelicans again. The Pelicans will be wanting revenge for blowing that 23-point lead. And then you play at the world champ Denver Nuggets. You play at the Clippers, who have been really good recently. At least that is until they got blown out by the Celtics. I believe that was yesterday. But like, you have a pretty tough little road trip here after Christmas. And that's where maybe we see exactly where the Grizzlies are. And then you start maybe planning, like, are we going to make some moves? Are we going to try to get another center? Do we need to unload LaRavia or Conchar to get Vince Williams Jr. on a regular contract? I mean, Vince can play, my understanding is Vince can play maybe 22 more of the Grizzlies games. So he's been on the active roster through the first 28 games. So that basically gets you to the All-Star break and to the trade deadline. So something will happen. The Grizzlies will make a deal before the trade deadline to, I believe, open up a roster spot so they can put Vince Williams Jr. on the regular roster. Anyways, thanks so much for supporting this show all season. Thanks, of course, to the people who support me at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Hope you guys all have some wonderful, happy holidays. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.